Ladies and gentlemen, champions, dreamers, builders of destiny, listen to me carefully. There is a difference between people who talk about what they want and those who get up, stand up, and refuse to sit down until they see it happen. The world remembers those who never gave up, not because they never failed, but because they refused to let failure have the final word. Today, I want to give you the 81 trait of people who evar give up. And if you catch this trait, if you plant it in your spirit, if you cultivate it in your character, listen to me, there is no storm, no delay, no betrayal, no rejection, no obstacle that can stop you. Are you ready? Say, I'm ready. The power of relentless resilience, the 51 trait of people who never give up, is not talent. It's not connections. It's not good luck. It's not charm. It's not a perfect past. It is relentless resilience. Write that down. Relentless resilience. People who never give up have the ability to get knocked down, embarrassed, counted out, overlooked, and still get back up, look life in the face and say, you hit hard, but I'm still here. A resilience is the quiet, invisible force that separates the quitters from the finishers, the doubters from the doors, the dreamers from the legends. Let's break this down into 7 powerful truths that will unlock your own relentless resilience. They decide before the fight starts. They decide before the fight starts. The people you admire, the ones whose stories you hear about overcoming impossible odds, did not stumble upon resilience in the middle of their battles. They made a decision long before the storm showed up at their door. They decided, no matter what happens to me, I refuse to quit. And that one decision became their anchor when everything else was shifting around them. You see, most people wait until the pressure hits before they try to figure out if they have what it takes. But the people who never give up, the champions, the builders, the ones who get up off the canvas when life knocks them out, they decide before the first blow is thrown. They make up their minds in the calm so they can survive the chaos. It's like a boxer who steps into the ring already knowing, I might bleed tonight, I might get knocked down, I might hear the crowd boo, but I'm not leaving this ring until I finish the fight. In life, your fight might not be in a boxing ring. It might be in a hospital room. It might be in a boardroom where no one believes in you. It might be in a tiny apartment where you're broke, eating noodles for the 3rd night in a row while your friends post pictures of luxury vacations. It might be sitting in your car in the parking lot, wiping your face before walking into a job you hate, but you go anyway because you've got responsibilities. It's in those quiet, brutal moments when people who have already decided not to quit find the strength to take another step. Deciding before the fight starts means you accept that pain is part of the process. You expect setbacks. You're not shocked by struggle. You don't crumble under pressure because you knew it was coming. You didn't pray for easy. You prepared for war. You armored your mind for adversity, and when it showed up, you didn't fall apart because your decision was already made. There's a story about a young man who wanted to be a writer. He sent out 37 book proposals. Every single one was rejected. Publishers told him, you're wasting your time. Friends said, be realistic. Bills were piling up. The lights were about to get cut off. He worked a job he hated to stay afloat, but every morning before the world woke up, he would look in the mirror and say out loud, I already decided. I will not stop. It was that decision, not his talent, not his connections, not his circumstances that carried him through. On the 38th submission, a small publisher took a chance. That book went on to sell millions. That man's name is on bookshelves around the world today because he decided before the fight even began. Deciding in advance is like pouring concrete into the foundation of your future. You don't wait for the rain to see if the roof leaks. You build strong before the storm. And let me tell you something, storms are guaranteed. Life doesn't ask for your permission to get tough. It won't send you a polite letter before betrayal arrives. It won't warn you before loss shows up on your doorstep. But when you've already made up your mind, you don't break when it hits. You bend, but you don't break. I've seen people crumble under things they could have survived if they had decided beforehand. A job loss that feels like the end. A relationship breakup that makes them question their worth. A business deal that collapses and takes their confidence with it. But people who keep rising, the ones whose names you hear in victory stories, they had their minds made up before the test came. They said, I'll bleed if I must, I'll cry if I have to, but I won't quit, not now, not ever. And it's not about being fearless. No, even the toughest people feel fear. The strongest warriors have moments of doubt. But when fear comes, it finds them standing on the foundation of their decision. It knocks on the door and realizes this one's already made up their mind. Think about something in your life right now you're wrestling with. That situation you haven't talked to anyone about. That thing you've considered walking away from because it's too heavy. The burden you're pretending isn't there. Before you go one step further, you need to decide. Decide what you're going to be about. Not when it's easy, not when the sun is shining and the bills are paid and the people are clapping. Decide now, in the discomfort, in the uncertainty, in the middle of the unanswered prayers. Because if you don't decide now, life will decide for you. And life is a brutal decision maker. It will tell you to sit down when you should be standing. It will convince you to quit when you're one step away from the breakthrough. It will persuade you to shrink when you were born to expand. That's why people who never give up are dangerous, because life can throw everything it's got at them and they'll keep moving. They might limp, they might crawl, but they'll never stay down because they already made the decision. Before the fight even started, they learn how to lose without quitting. They learn how to lose without quitting. That's what separates those who are remembered from those who are forgotten. It's not that they didn't lose. It's that they refuse to let a loss define them. In fact, people who never give up have mastered one of life's rarest, most difficult skills. They know how to take a hit, how to swallow the pain of disappointment, how to endure the sting of failure, and instead of folding, they find a way to turn it into fuel. Most people believe that losing is the end. They think failure is a verdict, a final sentence stamped on their destiny. But the people who outlast their losses see failure for what it truly is. A teacher disguised as defeat. Every setback, every rejection, every embarrassing moment when the plan crumbles and the dream feels ridiculous is actually life testing how bad you want it. See, talk is cheap when everything's going right. Anybody can be confident when the crowd is clapping and the money's flowing. But when you lose, when the business fails, when the relationship ends, when your friends stop answering your calls, when your plans unravel, that's when your character steps into the spotlight. People who never give up, they understand something most people never learn. They know how to lose with grace, how to bleed without bitterness, how to accept temporary defeat without turning it into permanent surrender. There's a difference between a setback and a shutdown. They feel the pain like anybody else. They have nights when they stare at the ceiling wondering if they're wasting their life. They've driven home in silence with tears blurring the road. But somewhere deep inside them is a voice louder than failure, a voice that says, you might have lost this round, but you're not finished. You'll notice these people because after life knocks them down, they get quiet. Not because they're defeated, but because they're recalculating like a GPS that says rack routing. They don't quit the journey, they just find a new road. Losing teaches them things success never could. It humbles them, it makes them sharper. It reveals their weaknesses, exposes their blind spots, and introduces them to a level of themselves they never knew existed. There's a woman I knew who opened a small clothing store. She put everything into it, savings time hope. She believed it would be her breakthrough. The first 6 months were tough, but she kept pushing. In the 7th month, a major department store opened 2 blocks away, offering similar clothes at cheaper prices. Her sales plummeted. By the end of the year, she had to close the doors. Most people would have curled up in the shame of it. She didn't. She grieved for a weekend. On Monday morning, she sat at her kitchen table with a notebook and wrote down everything she learned. Every mistake, every oversight, every strength she discovered in herself. Then she opened a small online boutique 6 months later. This time she knew exactly how to market, how to negotiate supplier prices, how to manage inventory. 3 years later, she cleared 6 figures. The loss taught her what victory couldn't. That's what it means to lose without quitting. It means you stop seeing failure as a curse and start seeing it as a classroom. Some lessons can't be taught in comfort. Some growth only comes through being stretched beyond what you thought you could endure. The people who never give up, they get that. They understand the value of falling flat on your face because every time you hit the ground, you pick up something you didn't see standing up. Look at athletes who lose championships. The real champions aren't the ones who pretend they don't care. They're the ones in the locker room after the loss, drenched in sweat and heartbreak, watching the replays of their mistakes. Not because they love pain, but because they refuse to leave that lesson unlearned. They treat the loss like an investment, extracting every ounce of wisdom from it, so the next time they step into the arena, they come back wiser, hungrier, and harder to kill. The same applies to your life. You'll lose things, opportunities, money, relationships, confidence. It's inevitable. The question isn't if you'll lose. It's how you'll respond when you do. Will you let it write your obituary or your comeback story? Will you retreat into comfort? Or will you let the loss become the spark that lights a new fire in you? People who never give up expect losses. They anticipate betrayal. They know plans go sideways, but they never allow the outcome to dictate their output. They adjust, they learn, they hurt, and then they come back stronger, smarter, and with a memory of the pain that keeps them sharp enough never to make the same mistake twice. That's how you lose without quitting. You don't deny the pain. You don't sugarcoat it. You don't fake a smile. You feel it, you face it, and then you figure out what it came to teach you, because every loss carries a lesson, and the people who win in the long run are the ones wise enough to listen. They focus on what's left, not what's lost. They focus on what's left, not what's lost. That's the game changer. That's the difference between someone who falls and stays down and someone who gets back up with a fire in their eyes. Life is a thief sometimes. It takes things from you. Time, money, people, opportunities, plans. It can strip you down until you feel like you're standing in the middle of your life with nothing but empty hands and a broken heart. But listen to me. The people who never give up don't stare at the ashes. They search for the embers. They don't obsess over what they used to have. They scan the wreckage for what's still burning, because there's always something left. Maybe not what you wanted, maybe not what you hoped for, but spark, a sliver, a skill, a contact, an ounce of strength, a voice whispering in the back of your mind. Don't you dare give up now. People who focus on what's left have trained their eyes to see possibility in the ruins. Think about a mother who's lost her job, her relationship is over, and her bank account is in the negative. She's sitting at the kitchen table with bills she can't pay and kids asking for dinner. And in that moment, she has two options: break down or break through. And the ones who break through, they don't wait for help, they take inventory. Okay, I've got this much rice in the cupboard. I've got a phone. I've got my resume. I've got friends I can call. And I've still got my mind. That's what's left. And that's where she starts. You see, people who win big don't start with much. They just know how to work what's left. They're like a chef who walks into a half-empty pantry and still creates a masterpiece meal. They don't complain about what's missing. They say, let me show you what I can do with what I've still got. Because life doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be resourceful, to make something out of the fragments, to rise from the pieces like a phoenix, not because you had everything, but because you used what you had with everything in you. I once met a man who had lost his job, his wife had left him, and his house was foreclosed. He told me, I lost everything except my hands. And do you know what he did? He started fixing things for neighbors, for local businesses. He didn't have a website, he didn't have a brand, he didn't even have a car, but he had hands. And those hands turned into side jobs. The side jobs turned into referrals. The referrals turned into a business. Today, he owns one of the top home repair services in his city because he focused on what was left. That's how you win. You stop crying over the chapters that ended, and you start writing new ones with the ink you've got left. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, and you start moving with whatever's still in your toolbox. Even if all you have is faith and breath, that's enough. Faith will carry you and breath will keep you moving. You may have lost money, but you didn't lose your mind. You may have lost some friends, but you didn't lose your fight. You may have lost a relationship, but you didn't lose your value. You may have lost time, but you didn't lose your purpose. You may have lost a plan, but you didn't lose the dream. You see what I'm saying? There's always something left. The ones who rise from rock bottom are not the ones with the cleanest stories or the most favorable odds. They're the ones who look around and say, I've still got enough to take one more step. And that one step leads to the next and the next. And before you know it, what looked like the end was just the beginning in disguise. There's power in perspective. Two people can go through the same loss, the same heartbreak, the same disaster, and one will drown in sorrow while the other digs out with bare hands. The difference, one is staring at what's lost, the other is fighting for what's left. This is where strength is forged, not in the good days, but in the days when everything is broken and you keep building anyway. Not with the luxury of having every resource, but with the grit to make something out of scraps. Not when you feel full of energy, but when you're tired and aching and uncertain, and you still move forward anyway. So the next time life takes something from you, before you sit down and mourn, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what do I still have? What's still in your hands? What's still in your heart? Because that is where your miracle begins. That is where your comeback is born. That is where greatness gets built, not in abundance, but in the decision to value what's left instead of being victimized by what's lost. They don't let temporary become permanent. They don't let temporary become permanent. That's the secret weapon of people who never give up, because life is full of moments that feel final, moments that feel like the curtain's closing, the door's locking, and the last light just went out. It feels like you're trapped in a season that's never going to end, like the storm clouds are never going to lift. And in those moments, the people who lose are the ones who start calling temporary situations permanent realities. They start saying things like, I guess this is just how my life is now. I guess this is what I deserve. I guess this is my story. But people who refuse to give up, they don't think like that. They might bend. They might break down for a night. But they never build a house in the middle of a storm. You've got to understand, no situation in life is permanent unless you let it be. Pain isn't permanent. Failure isn't permanent. Heartbreak isn't permanent. Rejection isn't permanent. It's a season, a chapter, a page. It's not your whole book. And those who win in the end are the ones who learn to remind themselves in the middle of the fire, this won't last forever. It feels endless now, but it won't be like this always. That's how they survive things that destroy other people, because they refuse to treat a temporary crisis like a permanent address. I remember meeting a man who, at the age of 45, lost his job after 20 years, a job he thought he'd retire from. Overnight, everything he knew was gone, his routine, his security, his identity. For weeks, he sat on his porch staring at the same empty street, drowning in the same hopeless thought, this is my life now. But one day, he heard his neighbor's lawnmower break down. Without thinking, he grabbed his old tools, fixed it in 15 minutes, and the neighbor handed him 4D. That spark, that one moment reminded him, I can still create, I can still do something. Within a year, that man had a side business repairing lawn equipment and eventually opened his own shop, all because he refused to let a temporary job loss become a permanent life sentence. It's the same thing with heartbreak. People get their hearts shattered and start believing a love isn't for them. One breakup, one betrayal, and suddenly they're writing off every future connection. They turn a temporary wound into a lifelong wall. But the people who heal, the people who love again, who laugh again, who trust again, they remind themselves, this hurts now, but it won't hurt forever. They allow themselves to grieve, but they don't give grief the keys to their future. The same is true for financial struggles. You could be broke today. You could have overdrafts in your account, debt collectors calling, and zero left in your pocket. But broke is a condition, not a character trait. Being broke is a situation, not a sentence. The ones who make it out of poverty, the ones who build empires from the dust, they're the ones who refuse to believe that because they're broke now, they'll be broke forever. They hustle, they grind, they learn new skills. They sell things they sacrifice. They tell themselves while staring at empty cupboards, this is a moment, not a life. And before long, they climb out of holes other people died in. The most dangerous thing you can do is confuse a chapter with the whole story. Life will break you in pieces sometimes. It will strip you down to nothing. It will pull people out of your life you thought would be there forever. It will ruin plans you thought were perfect. It will flip your world upside down. And in those moments, your survival depends on your ability to remember this is temporary. It might be a long chapter. It might be the hardest one you've ever read. But it will turn. The page will flip. The season will shift. People who never give up learn how to talk to themselves. When nobody else is around, when the cheering crowds are gone, when the likes and followers disappear, in the dark moments, in the lonely spaces, they say things like, I don't know when this will end, but I know it won't be like this forever. They anchor themselves to the future while enduring the present. They refuse to make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. I've seen people fall into depression after losing a loved one, thinking their life ended too. And then one day, years later, they find themselves laughing, almost surprised by the sound of their own joy, because grief didn't get to write the ending. Time moved. Healing came, and something beautiful crept into the space where sorrow used to live. You have to remind yourself that life is movement. Nothing stays the same. Joy isn't forever, but neither is pain. Success won't last, but neither will struggle. That's the rhythm. That's the promise. And the people who outlast their trials are the ones who live by one rule. I will not pitch my tent here. I might pass through this valley, but I refuse to build a house in it. Whatever you're facing, however deep the hole feels, however dark the night seems, it's temporary. Not because it isn't real, but because no night has ever stopped the sunrise, no winter has ever blocked the spring, and no storm lasts forever. The people who never give up know this in their bones. They stare down the storm, feel the rain on their face, and whisper, you can hit me all you want, but I'm not staying here. They feed their mind what fuels their mission. They feed their mind what fuels their mission. And I need you to hear me clearly. Your mind is not a playground, it's a battlefield. Every thought you entertain is either a soldier for your future or a saboteur for your potential. The people who never give up, the ones who keep moving when everyone else quits, they guard their minds like a fortress. They understand that what you consume, you eventually become. If you let negativity, doubt, and defeatist voices take root in your head, you'll start living out those ideas without even realizing it. It's like planting weeds in your own garden and wondering why nothing good grows. The people who stay relentless on their mission are intentional about what they allow into their mental space. They know you can't binge failure and expect to manifest victory. You can't scroll through hours of comparison, gossip, and fear and expect confidence to show up in your soul. They feed themselves thoughts that fuel their fight. When others are drowning in the noise of mediocrity, they're searching for words, books, speeches, music, anything that reminds them of who they are and what they came to do. They don't just wait for motivation, they manufacture it. They wake up and feed their mission before the world has a chance to feed them its fears. You'll find them listening to audios in the gym, headphones in at the grocery store, watching documentaries about people who turned ashes into empires. They know every piece of content is either lifting them up or pulling them down, so they choose wisely. Because energy is contagious, and if you spend enough time around doubt, you'll catch it. If you soak in the words of cowards and quitters, you'll find your ambition slowly shrinking to match theirs. I remember a young woman who was working 2 jobs, barely making rent, chasing a dream no one else believed in. People laughed behind her back. Family told her to be realistic. Every day she came home exhausted, but before bed, she made a promise to herself. If I'm going to be surrounded by doubt, at least my mind will be a sanctuary. She started feeding her mind differently. No more junk reality TV. No more scrolling through people pretending to be happy online. She filled her nights with stories of entrepreneurs who started with nothing. She studied speeches by those who built legacies in the shadows of rejection. She wrote affirmations on her bathroom mirror. And slowly, the world outside didn't feel so heavy anymore. Not because it changed, but because she changed inside. And within 2 years, she launched her own business. People still doubted her, but by then, their opinions couldn't survive in the environment she'd built in her mind. People who never give up aren't delusional. They see the obstacles. They hear the critics. They feel the fatigue, but they don't feed it. They starve what weakens them and feed what fuels them. They learn to curate their environment, even if it's only between their own ears. Because the world won't always affirm you. The doors won't always open on time. Some seasons will feel like winter with no end. But if your mind stays warm with vision, with fire, with stories of the impossible made possible, you'll keep walking. It's about knowing how to program yourself on purpose. Because if you don't, life will program you by accident. Every complaint you entertain, every discouraging voice you replay, every failure you rehearse in your head is a seed, and the harvest will come. So they choose what to water. They tell themselves things others would laugh at. I'm built for this. I might bend, but I won't break. I'm the one my bloodline's been waiting for. I was made for more than this moment. They feed their mind what their mission needs because they know battles are won long before the war begins. Look at athletes at the top of their game. You think it's just physical. No, it's mental. It's 4 a.m. alarms while others sleep. It's visualizing the win before they even step onto the field. It's muting the noise of doters. It's consuming stories of champions. It's speaking life over themselves in locker rooms no one else sees. And the same goes for anyone with a mission. Whether you're building a business, raising a family, recovering from heartbreak, chasing a goal no one else believes in, what you feed your mind matters more than what you face. Because you can survive storms if your mind stays dry. You can walk through hell if your mind stays cool. And you can outlast your enemies if your mind stays fixed on your future, not your failures. The people who make it, who rise from nothing, who flip rejection into redemption, they aren't stronger, luckier, or more gifted. They just refuse to consume what makes them weak. They trade gossip for growth. They swap out pity parties for power moves. They replace fear with fire. They guard their mental diet like a soldier guards a king. Because the mission is too important, the dream too big, the legacy too precious to waste time feeding themselves things that make them small. They understand one truth: you cannot win a war with a starving mind. So they eat like warriors, feed their spirit like champions, and build a mind that no failure, no critic, no delay can break. They master the art of starting again. They master the art of starting again. That's the trait you'll see in every person who refuses to stay down when life hits them in the mouth. It's not that they don't fall. They fall hard, sometimes harder than anyone else. It's that every single time they hit the ground, they make a decision to get back up, even if it's slow, even if it's painful, even if nobody's clapping for them anymore. They understand that the most dangerous thing about failure isn't the fall. It's the temptation to stay down, because after you've lost everything, after the applause fades, after the people you thought would stay vanish, there's a voice that whispers, why start again? Why put yourself through it? What if it ends the same way? And that's where most people die. Not in the fall, but in the hesitation to rise. People who never give up have made peace with the restart. They aren't ashamed to start small again, to rebuild what was lost, to plant seeds where there used to be trees. They don't let their ego convince them that starting over means they've failed. No. To them, starting again is proof that they're still in the fight, because anyone can keep going when everything's smooth, but it takes a different kind of spirit to crawl out of wreckage, brush the dust off your shoulders, and say, all right, let's run it back. I knew a man who invested every cent he had into a clothing business. His designs were original, his vision was clear, and for a while, everything looked good. Until one mistake, one deal gone wrong, one unexpected shift in the market, and it was over. He lost the store, the stock, the money, everything. Most of his friends disappeared. He told me he sat in his tiny one-bedroom apartment, surrounded by unsold shirts and unopened bills, and thought about giving up, not just on the business, on life. But then something shifted in him. He realized he still had the idea, the passion, the ability. The world hadn't taken that. So he did what most won't. He started again, not in a fancy shop this time, but on the sidewalk, selling shirts out of the trunk of his car, day after day, one customer at a time. Years later, that same man owns multiple stores across the country, his brand known in cities he's never even visited, because he mastered the art of starting again. You've seen this in your own life too, even if you didn't recognize it. Every time you got your heart broken and swore you'd never trust again, but still opened yourself to love anyway. Every time you failed an exam, missed a job, lost a friend, but got up the next morning and chose not to quit. Those are restarts. Those are the moments that build warriors. And the ones who make it to the top, who live to tell the story, they are the ones who've started over more times than most people have tried. Because life will not ask for your permission before it knocks you down. It won't send a warning before it changes the rules on you. You'll wake up one day and everything you built, planned, and believed in will be in pieces at your feet. And in that moment, the temptation will be strong to accept defeat, to label yourself as a has-been, to live in the story of what could have been. But people who never give up, they refuse to stay in that story. They pick up the first brick they can find, even if it's broken, and start laying the foundation for the next chapter. It's like learning to walk again after a terrible injury. The pain is real. The setbacks are constant. Every step feels like a war against your own body. But those who heal, who move again, who run again, they do so because they're willing to look ridiculous trying. They don't mind the awkward steps, the stumbles, the people watching, because they understand that every great comeback starts with an embarrassing beginning. One of my favorite examples is a young woman who dreamed of becoming a filmmaker. She spent years working on her first big project, script, cast, location, everything. She poured her soul into it. And when it finally premiered, it bombed. Bad reviews, empty seats, financial loss. People told her to find another career, but while others were talking, she was already rewriting. She picked up her camera, started small documentaries with her phone, uploaded them online. No budget, no team, just raw stories. And one of those went viral. From that moment, doors opened she thought were closed forever. Today, she's directing for platforms you watch every week, all because she mastered the art of starting again. See, it's not about how grand the restart is. It's about the heart behind it. Whether you're restarting a business, a relationship, a dream, or your own confidence, it matters that you start. People who never give up don't care if it's not perfect, if no one's watching, if it hurts. They do it because there's no other choice. Staying down isn't an option. Living in defeat is unacceptable. They understand that greatness isn't a straight line. It's loops, detours, dead ends, and countless new beginnings. And every time they start again, they bring with them the wisdom of the last fall, the experience of the last loss, the toughness earned in the dark. That's why people who master the art of starting again aren't weaker after failure, sharper, wiser. They've bled before and survived. And every restart carries the weight of the battles they've already conquered. They believe that delay is not denial. They believe that delay is not denial. And let me tell you, this is where most people fall off. This is the battlefield where average minds retreat and champions are forged. Because when your dream takes longer than you thought, when the door you've been knocking on stays shut, when your prayers feel like they're hitting the ceiling, it's easy to start believing that the answer is no. It's easy to confuse silence with rejection. But those who never give up, they understand something the average person doesn't. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen at all. They know that the timing of your life isn't always in your control, but the belief you hold in the waiting room is. And that belief, that fierce, stubborn, unshakable conviction that delay is not denial, is the anchor that keeps them grounded when everything else is trying to sweep them away. Because delay is a test. It asks you, do you really want this? Or were you just saying it because it sounded good? Delay will strip away the convenience, the hype, the excitement, and leave you face to face with the raw question, is this worth fighting for without applause, without recognition, without certainty? I remember a young man who dreamed of being a motivational speaker. He would stand in front of a mirror, practicing his speeches, mimicking the greats, imagining stadiums full of people. But for years, nobody would give him a stage. He sent out emails, recorded videos, reached out to schools, churches, businesses, silence. No replies, no offers, no interest. And every day, delay whispered, maybe you're not cut out for this. Maybe you misunderstood your gift. Maybe this just isn't your lane. But he didn't stop. Instead of waiting for the stage, he made one. He spoke to kids on playgrounds. He gathered friends in his living room. He uploaded his talks online where sometimes only 3 people watched, and one of them was his mother. But he showed up. Day after day, delay tried to break him, but he believed delay was not denial. That if he stayed ready, one day the opportunity would come. And it did. One video found the right person, and within months, he was speaking on stages he'd only dreamed of. Not because he was the loudest, not because he had the most followers, but because he outlasted the delay. You see it in every success story that looks like an overnight win. The truth is, behind every overnight success are years of unglamorous grind. Years of no, of not yet, of silence, of watching others get what you prayed for while you're still stuck in the same place. But the difference is, the ones who make it, they don't let the wait convince them the answer is no. They let it strengthen their patience, sharpen their skills, and stretch their resilience. It's like planting a seed. The day you plant it is not the day you eat the fruit. And the danger is that in the season of delay, when nothing seems to be breaking through the soil, You start digging up your own seed. You sabotage your own future because you can't see immediate results. But those who never give up, they water the ground even when it looks dry. They keep showing up even when nobody notices. They keep believing even when the evidence says they're crazy, because deep down, they know delay is not denial, it's preparation. Think about the athletes who train for years before they ever win a medal. The writers who fill journals with ideas before one gets published. The entrepreneurs who pitch 100 investors before one says yes. The mothers trying for a child, facing loss after loss, but showing up for one more appointment because delay is not denial. These people, they've developed a mindset that says, I might not have it yet, but I will. This is not a no, it's a not now. And if I can hold on through this, the breakthrough will feel that much sweeter. It's a dangerous thing, this kind of faith, because it makes a person unstoppable. It removes the power of disappointment. It makes rejection meaningless, because you can't defeat someone who refuses to believe the word no. The person who says, delay might slow me, but it won't stop me. Delay might frustrate me, but it won't break me. Delay might stretch me, but it won't define me. There was a woman who dreamed of becoming a doctor, but life kept throwing detours at her. Family obligations, financial struggles, health issues. Every year, it seemed like a goal moved further away. People told her she was too old, too tired, too behind, but she didn't care. She believed that delay is not denial. She took one class a semester. She studied during lunch breaks. She sacrificed vacations, parties, sleep. It took her 15 years to finish what most people do in 7, but she did it. And when she walked across that stage, the applause wasn't just for the degree, it was for the war she fought in the dark. For every time delay tried to bury her dream, and she kept digging it back up. People who never give up know that timing belongs to life, but effort belongs to them. And as long as they control what they can, delay can never defeat them. They don't look at closed doors as rejection, but as redirection. They don't count the years lost, they count the wisdom gained. Because delay makes you hungrier, wiser, tougher. And in that hunger, in that patience, in that resilience, they find a power most people never taste. And so I tell you today, if you're standing in the middle of a storm, if you're staring at locked doors, if you feel like you've been running toward a dream that seems to move further away every time you take a step forward, don't you dare back down now. Because history is not written by those who almost made it. Legacy doesn't remember the ones who gave up at the edge of breakthrough. The world bows to those who refuse to quit. The world eventually turns its eyes to the one who kept showing up when no one was watching. You've heard it before, but hear it again with new ears. It's not over until I win. That's not just a quote. It's a declaration of war against every excuse, every delay, every voice that told you to settle. Les Brown said it, and millions lived it. You've got to stand in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and tell that reflection, as long as I have breath, I have a chance. As long as my heart's beating, I got fight left in me. Because life is not fair, it was never promised to be. But life responds to resilience. It rewards the ones who get up battered and bleeding, whispering through cracked lips, I'm not done yet. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have everyone's approval. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be relentless. The greatest victories are reserved for those who had every reason to quit, but chose to believe one more time. When you feel like life is pulling you back, remember the words of the great Eric Thomas. When you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. It's about desire that burns so hot inside you that quitting isn't even an option. Desire that makes disappointment powerless. That makes failure temporary. That turns not yet into motivation. You've got to want your future more than you want comfort, more than you want sleep, more than you want approval from people who aren't building anything themselves. You have to fight with the mindset Muhammad Ali carried into every ring. I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. Because champions are not made in the moment they lift the trophy. Champions are made in the lonely hours, in the days when nobody claps for you, in the nights you cry yourself to sleep but wake up the next day and move anyway. That's where power is born. That's where your future gets written. And when delay shows up at your door again, and it will, when life tests you with not yet one more time, you stare it down and you say, you can slow me, but you will not stop me. You can delay me, but you will never deny me. Because what's for you is for you. The world might ignore you now, but there's a moment with your name on it. There's a season that belongs to you. And when it comes, every tear, every late night, every closed door, every no, every betrayal, every lonely moment, it will make sense. It will be fuel. It will be the proof that you were built for this. I dare you to develop an obsession with rising. I dare you to be the one your family, your neighborhood, your generation remembers, because you would not stay down. Because when most people accepted defeat, You said, watch me. Become the example others will quote. Be the story others will tell. Let your life shout louder than any speech could ever whisper. It's easy to exist. It's rare to live. Most people die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. But not you. Not the ones who refuse to settle. Not the ones who believe delay is not denial. Who master the art of starting again. Who bleed persistence and breathe resilience. The clock's still ticking. The fight's still yours. And I promise you, if you're going through hell, keep going. Because even the darkest night has to bow before the morning. And your morning's coming.